Hey, loves. Healing childhood wounds, healing relationships with parents, family members, seems to be something I am well versed in, something that I have been choosing for myself, and I'm here to share insight for anybody else who is on that journey. I will walk you through my journey, and I hope that it lands and resonates with those who need it and who desire to hear a perspective. There's so many ways to go about this thing called life, and here's how I did it. Here's how I did it for me. Honestly, it started with taking a break, just completely removing myself from the space of those who I felt harmed me, and not necessarily forever or completely, but I only went around when I wanted to, and when I would be also in the company of people who made me feel really good and who I felt safe around and who I felt seen by. And that, to me, helped me to rebuild my foundation. For me, having such harmful, impactful things occur at such a young age by the hands of those who I was put in the care of, and the family in which I was born into, it really rocked my foundation. It taught me a lot of lessons just around human capability, and made me more aware and intuitively sensitive to different energies and different feelings. It made me more aware of my navigation system, my internal navigation system. But it also shook my foundation of what love was and what it meant to be a child, what it meant to be a grandchild, what it meant to be in a family, like all those things. It rocked my foundation. So I needed to be around people who chose me, who saw me, who loved me, who celebrated me, who poured into me, and who I could really just breathe easy around. So that allowed for me to have a strength within myself that I needed to be around those who I felt had taken some strength from me, or who had chosen to be more abrasive, more harmful than compassionate and caring. And that meant the world to me. So surrounding yourself with the people that choose you, that care for you, that love you, that you feel safe around, and distancing yourself from anything that is not that is the first step along my journey, my recommendation, how I did it. And then after I had the fortification, it allowed for me to not need as much from those people anymore, to not need that outward validation from them, and allow for me to see them just as humans, like that distance made the relationship less, or the title of the relationship less of a burden and more of a, okay, just because we're born into a family, just because we're given to certain people, or if you believe that we chose certain people, or whatever the case may be, just because that's the case doesn't necessarily mean that they get what that title comes with if they can't handle it at that time for whatever reason. So for my own sanity, for my own peace of mind, and truthfully, I still wanted to feel safe around my parents. I still wanted to be around them, and I wanted to have a relationship with them, but not at my expense. And the way that I was able to do that is by realizing the impact that they had on me, and seeing that I too will continue to grow up and become an adult who could also have children, and my story would be my story still. So the next step was seeing them as humans, seeing their story, seeing what they had lived, seeing what they had experienced. And I had the pleasure and the not so pleasurable experience of knowing my parents' parents, and knowing some of what they had gone through, and experiencing myself some of what I can only imagine would have been their experience. And that allowed for me to have compassion for them. Like, even if they couldn't be for me what would have been helpful, or what would have been life-changing, doesn't mean that I can't have compassion for them and still see the things that they had experienced, and how it could formulate this type of love, how it could formulate this type of behavior, this type of thought process, the way, walls can be built up and anger can be packaged, and the way that, I could be treated harshly because they were treated harshly. And not to say that it was an excuse, but it helped me to see that it didn't have as much to do with me as even they thought. Like, I have no control over how other people show up, but me seeing them as human and seeing their story and choosing to give them that space to live their life, to make their choices, even if their choices impacted me majorly, even if their choices were things in which I needed to heal from. It's still their story. They're still their own human on their own journey. And whether I like it or not, they're going to live. They're going to live, not whether I like it or not, they're going to live, but whether I like it or not, they're going to live their way, whatever that is. And that helped me to create emotional distance, and to almost see them as any other person that I would have compassion for. If I met this person, anywhere out in the world, if they were my coworker, if they were, someone that I saw on a documentary and they told me their story, that type of compassion that I have for general human beings, and then let alone it being my parents, I was able to just see them differently, and to not expect them to be anything but who they are. And that allowed me to create space where they didn't feel so defensive. I think sometimes, when people feel like they've let people down, or when, parents have done things to their child or have interacted with their children in ways that they're not the most proud of, or that they wouldn't do if they were in their right mind, or making choices, based on their own hurt that they hadn't had the space, time, knowledge, tools, examples to heal from. They can lash out because they can't face the truth of the impact that it has made, and the fact that you can't really take things back once they come out. Once it happens, you have to move from that space, and that's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to face. It's not an easy feeling to have within your body. So lashing out, being angry, being defensive, all those things made more sense to me. And it allowed for me to see, like, oh wow, there's still a lot of hurt that you have to heal from. And it allowed for me to have different conversations with them. And instead of talking to my parents and saying, like, these are the things that you did to me that hurt me, and these are the ways in which my life was impacted, and these are the things that I did in order to be the person that I am in spite of all of these things, the conversations were more like, oh my gosh, like that thing that you experienced, those things that you experienced had to have been difficult. I'm so sorry that you had to experience that. I couldn't imagine having, a husband that did this to you. I can't imagine having a parent that did that to you. I can't imagine having this experience of a cousin or whatever, these traumatic things that happened to my parents. I couldn't imagine those things. And I see you, and I'm grateful that you're still here. I'm grateful that despite however it impacts me, I'm glad that I get to still see you, and that you are strong enough to have lived through it and to have created me. And that's major. And those conversations, although I still didn't have the validation from them that, certain things shouldn't have happened, or I'm so sorry that happened to you, even though those conversations hadn't been given to me, I knew that they needed it. And it's really how I felt. Like, sometimes our parents have gone through so many things, and not that it makes it any better, any easier, but me realizing that opened up that space for them to feel seen, and for them to feel heard, and for them to even reflect on their life and their life experiences, and how it's impacting the decisions that they made, that they make, and how they're showing up now. And that space softened them, and it went from defensiveness to emotion-filled reflection for their own story, for their own history, before I even existed, before the thought of me, the thought of me within them even existed, and helped them to begin to see and heal, and at least acknowledge their own childhood wounds and their own life story that had been bottled up and pushed down and projected onto the world. And that changed everything. It changed everything for me. So if you can find it within yourself, after having had time away, having had time around people who make you feel really joyful and celebrated and loved and seen and heard and cared for deeply, after having, been able to do all those things, if you're able to reach for seeing your parents as humans and seeing their story as you would a movie or a documentary or whatever, and those compassionate moments that you would have for a stranger, if you have it, to extend that to them and not expect them to extend it to you, that's the next bit that I did. And I had no idea where this was going to go. Like, this journey wasn't something that I knew, okay, I'm going to do this first, then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do this. It wasn't like that. It was literally me taking the steps and making the choices as I felt inspired to, as I felt called to as it made sense for me and my healing. So, you should tweak this as you feel intuitively led, as you feel guided, because not everybody is coming from the same place. Not everybody's journey is going to the same place. So this is just an example of how it can be done. And the next portion of it is just showing up. I began to feel and pay attention to how I felt when I would be around my parents, and how my body would tense up, and how I would anticipate something happening, or anticipate my feelings being hurt, or anticipate, different things, and really choosing to create a new story or leave room for something new to happen, and show up anyway, knowing that I had tools that could fill my cup if my cup needed to be filled, that I had tools to ground myself, to get back to center if something, threw me off a little bit about this experience. And just showing up with the love and with the compassion of seeing them, not, yes, as my parents for my own personal journey. Like, yes, I always know that they're my parents, and I always see them as such and have respect for them as such, but also with a wall of protection for myself of like, yes, you're my parents, but there's no expectation there. Everything else is icing on the cake, and anything that isn't what I may have needed in the moment is just like, darn, it's an unfortunate experience. That really sucked, but it's okay, because I can't control them. They are who they are. And I know that ultimately I'm always going to have more than what I need. I'm always going to have the love that I need. I'm always going to have everything, regardless of where it comes from, So that was the next bit of just like showing up, choosing to show up through that discomfort, and giving myself the opportunity to speak into existence what I wanted to see, and at least not expect the worst simply because of what had been the past or what had been the story. So allowing it to be something different. And that opens up a new world of possibilities. So if that is, something that is helpful to you, I hope that wherever you are on your journey, that this has given you some additional encouragement. Know that regardless, you are loved. I love you. And ultimately, you love you. And that's the part of the journey that I'm also on now. And that, yes, there are traditional ways in which we have expected people to show up, and it is amazing when people do show up that way, and we are better when people do show up in specific ways. But ultimately, I've come to learn that I have to love me. I have to show up for me. I have to choose the things that are most beneficial for me, void of anything else, because it's no one else's responsibility. Although it would be nice to not have to be the only one, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to be in this body. I'm the one that has to live this life. I'm the one that has to walk this walk, that lives this journey. So why not do for me what I want? Why not create the life that feels best for me? Why not create the life that lights me up? Why not choose the relationships that are most elevating and loving, and those relationships that have been chosen for me, choosing to do all that I can do to ensure that I have no regrets. And I'm glad that I did, because now my relationship with my parents is so much better. We're still on a journey. We're still all healing. We're still all journeying and learning and growing and evolving. But it's so much better. It's easier to have conversations. It's easier to enjoy one another's company. We enjoy being around each other. We enjoy learning and growing and building new memories and knowing that, we're okay showing up and having difficult conversations and not feeling as defensive or paying more attention to those little nuanced feelings within when we know that, someone is feeling triggered or someone is feeling heightened or extra sensitive or someone's extra tender. We don't lean in, we back up and give that compassion and give that space and give that love and kind of just show that compassion. I think sometimes we can ignore the ways that we know we would show up for a friend, or we know we would show up for, a stranger, because we want people to understand how much they've hurt us. We want people to see that they and their choices have made an impact on us. And sometimes that desire can deepen the wounds. That desire can make it more difficult for that revelation to exist, because it almost is like you ping pong these triggers, like, oh, this thing triggered me, or this thing made me really, really tender, and now I'm feeling very, very sensitive and emotional, and I'm feeling very hurt. And then me feeling that way then triggers you, and now you feel that way, and now we're going back and forth, and it can just snowball into something way bigger than it had to. So if we can just pause and know that at the end of the day, we love each other. At the end of the day, regardless of how we can show up, because that, is determined by so many things. But we all want the best for one another. And I want to hear you. I trust that you want to hear me. I love you deeply. I trust that you love me deeply. And if for whatever reason right now we're not able to see one another, we're not able to hear one another, we're not able to be kind to one another, we're not able to be sensitive to our tenderness, then we just need to take a beat. We need to take a breath and just come back when we have more space and more capacity to see one another, because it is an exchange. It is a dual, multi-layered, multi-level experience. And sometimes people have more capacity than others to have space for someone's truth and to not react in a way that is coming from hurt, but from clarity and love. So leaving space for those things as well, checking in with yourself. How am I feeling today? Do I need some extra love, some extra time in meditation? Do I need an extra walk? Do I need to go hang out with my friends for a bit? Do I need a hug? Do I need to read a story? Do I need to watch my favorite movie? Checking in with yourself and seeing what it is that will fill your cup, and make sure that you're feeling as sure-footed as possible. Your foundation is shored up and your cup is full before entering into things that could potentially be a little more of a challenge or require a little bit more of your capacity than normal. So I hope this was helpful. I know it was quick. It was pretty, concise, but for anyone journeying through the path of healing childhood wounds and healing relationships with parents, this is one of the areas of my childhood that I am seeing and at the light of at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. And I just wanted to share for anyone who's on the journey. I love you all, and I hope that this helped, and I hope that this gave you some insight and some love and compassion, and knowing that it's not easy. It's not easy at all, but it's worth it if that's what you desire. Many times I wasn't sure what this would end up as. I didn't know what my relationship with my parents would be like, but I knew that I wanted to honor myself in the journey and also do what I could do to ensure that I had no regrets, because tomorrow's never promised, and there's so many things that we can forget until we're forced to remember. And I really didn't want that for myself. So it was a long journey, like a decade plus. So don't think that this is an overnight thing. Like, very intense moments happened throughout this, and moments in which I needed to take another break, and I needed to, pour into myself more, and almost repeat the steps so that it could continue to evolve and become the beautiful thing that it is now. And even now, still repeating these steps from a different place. Things aren't as intense, things aren't as, tumultuous. So I ran out of storage on my SD card. So we're here now. And what a better place to end this video, because although there's so many things I know a lot about from life experience, it seems that my healing journey is what is coming up right now. So I'm here on my grandparents' property, and I'm so grateful for the journey that has brought me here. And that brings me to what the next video will be about, which is healing trauma from family, healing physical, emotional, deep-seated, highly intense trauma from those who were expected to love you and keep you safe. So, to be able to sit here and have a smile on my face and be able to speak in that way about it is definitely a blessing and a pleasure, and I'm grateful, so grateful for it. And that is a gift that I want to be able to share with others. If any part of my story, any part of my journey is helpful and will give space and healing to those types of experiences. So I love you. I see you. I am grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you're still here in spite of everything you've lived through, everything you've experienced. And I'm grateful that you are choosing to create a new story for yourself, create a new path for yourself, create new experiences, new memories, new power, taking back your power and choosing to live beyond it, live because of it, live because you deserve to, because you are incredible and you are so needed, and your story, your life, your experience up till now has prepared you in a unique and beautiful way for all that is ahead of you. So I also wanted to say that all of this healing and all of the beautiful unfolding in the relationships that I have with my parents now also isn't just one-sided work. My parents are choosing to make new decisions every day, are choosing to be the best version of themselves always. And I know that they've always been doing the best that they can, the best that they could with what they had and with what they knew and what they believed at the time. And the space and time, like I said, a decade plus of life and of new experiences, having conversations with other people. Shout out to Eddie and my wife, Tanya, and my mom and my dad, and them even talking to one another, their grandchildren, every bit, this journey, we're so interconnected. And the more we show up and honor what is being given to us internally, what's being told to us, how we're being guided, the more the journey comes together, the more each individual part, as they're doing their work, as they're having this side conversation that they, didn't know would have any impact on this other thing. Like, it's all so interconnected. And I'm grateful that my parents have chosen to be on this journey as well, to allow me the space to be the human that I am. And I know that I'm not like anyone else, just like everyone else is not like each other either. No matter how good we are at fitting into whatever box is needed at the time, I'm grateful that I am able to put down the walls of the boxes and just be me. And that the work that they are choosing to do also makes that journey even easier and has made our healing journey collectively happen much quicker and much more holistically. So know that if things aren't moving, all you can do is what you can do, and allow the rest to unfold as it needs to. So trust your pace, trust your nudges, trust your journey, trust your guidance, and know that you're doing the best that you can with what you have and what you know, and you are loved through it all. So I hope that warms your heart in a way that keeps you fueled for all that is to come, all the beauty that is to come. I'm grateful for you and all that you are. From my heart to yours, sending you love on this journey, and I am here. Feel free to leave any comments. Feel free to share anything you feel you'd like to share, and I will do my best to honor that in any way that I can. Until next time, I am Kristen. I am Ayal. I am here. I am loved, and so are you. Thank you for being here.